Citi Optimized Pay is a B2B payment tool. Working capital remains a challenge in supply chains. Buyers want to pay far out as possible, while suppliers want to be paid as early as possible. So what does this mean? It creates a working capital gap, right? And for you to address that gap, you actually need tools that will enable you to address that gap. So this is essentially what we were trying to solve for with this solution.
And today, how we see ourselves is that orchestrating layer between, the merchant or the SME who needs to get paid, and the bank who's actually either offering this credit or, bringing on board the corporate buyer, and we facilitate that movement of money.
How we are transforming B2B is that we are actually leveraging these capabilities to, solve for specific use cases. Today, we are solving for, fleets, right? In travel. We are solving for, in agriculture. We're using these capabilities, leveraging these capabilities to solve for agriculture use cases that can solve for movement of funds, for example, from Kenya to China. We have a lot of traders who are having difficulties, maybe, buying stuff from China. We have solutions that can provide for that in a seamless, secure, and convenient manner.
So we are solving for that fragmentation and saying you don't need to be banked today to get your money as you would need to be in traditional supply chain financing.
Wow. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro. In this particular edition, we're going to look at one of the finest fintech collaborations in the marketplace today in Kenya and Africa, the launch of Citi Optimized Pay by Citi, Visa, and Cellulant. The new solution is a game changer in addressing the long-standing challenges in B2B payments and supply chain finance. Joining me are three dynamic leaders representing each of the partners in this groundbreaking initiative. We are joined by Olivia Etyang, Innovation Lead at Visa, Evans Toroitich, Product Head of Commercial Cards and Receivables at Citi, and Catherine Wangechi, VP of Business Operations at Cellulant. We're going to explore Citi Optimized Pay and what it means for businesses across Kenya and beyond. I'd like you both to just maybe introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your role and what you do in your organization, starting off with you, Olivia.
Thank you, Moses, and welcome to the Visa Innovation Studio. I do take care of this space. As you said, I'm the innovation lead. I interact with our partners and clients to co-create solutions that are solving for the regional needs that we have, like Citi Optimized Pay. So I'm really excited to be talking about Citi Optimized Pay. I like to refer to myself as a digital financial services specialist.
Can you tell us a little bit about this space? Because I really love the eclectic look, the combination of African touches and high-tech, fintech looks. What actually happens here and what do you do here that sort of correlates to what you're doing with Citi and Cellulant as well?
So Moses, a while back, Visa made a decision to have innovation centers across the globe. And these innovation centers were really to just bring us closer to our partners and clients, right? And so we launched this space in 2022, I think you're here,
I
right?
came actually, I was here, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And we use this space to showcase Visa capabilities. And so we have demos on a day in the life of a customer where we would show Visa capabilities. We also use the space to, design think with our partners. And we use the space to actually co-create solutions. I'm really excited and happy that this is one of the solutions that we have co-created in this space.
Fantastic. So it's actually birthed in this space.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
And maybe we can come to you, Evans. You can introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your role and about the partnership you have with Visa and Cellulant as well.
Yeah, thank you, Moses, and pleasure being here today. So at Citi, I look after the receivables and commercial cards product. And what this is actually part of the payments business at Citi. So receivables is basically how our customers are collecting money and solutions that enable them to really enhance their collections efficiency. And on the commercial card side, I look after Citi's commercial cards business. So this entails the B2B commercial cards, meaning our e-commerce and payables, as well as the travel and entertainment business under the commercial card space. So pretty similar roles. Payments is payments. But yeah, it's been 5 years now at Citi, and interesting, a couple of years it's been, especially with such innovations we're doing here with Visa and Cellulant. It's really a pleasure having such partners that we can collaborate with and come up with new solutions for the market. So thank you.
So there's something I want to ask you, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier. Citi has always been known as sort of a very premier corporate-focused bank on a global level. And even in Kenya, I believe the kind of institutions and organizations you serve are not typically SMEs. So I'm kind of wondering why this direction, why now, and why Citi playing in this space?
So yes, Citi has traditionally been a corporate bank. In fact,
Yes.
I believe we are the only corporate bank here in Kenya, fully corporate bank, I mean. And when you look at our corporates, they don't operate alone, right? They have suppliers and clients that they work with in their ecosystem, right? And when you look at this ecosystem, our clients are asking us, okay, what solutions can you help us to come up with in order to help us streamline the whole supply chain, from how we interact with our clients to how we interact with our suppliers. So this solution is timely and sort of like a secondary innovation to what we are already doing with our clients in their supply chains, right? We currently run supply chain finance programs, and this is similar to this, to the Citi Optimized Pay solution. However, when you look at really the clients we are trying to go after with the Optimized Pay solution, it is more on the long tail side, the smaller SMEs that would have otherwise not, have been served as efficiently by the other solutions that we offer. So this is more of an enhancement to our already existing product suite that we have at Citi.
So you've actually created this product in service of your existing client base, and also to make that relationship with their smaller suppliers to be a bit more fluid and more, I suppose, easier for them, so
Correct.
to speak.
Correct.
Great.
Correct.
Oh, hi, Wangechi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good.
Yeah? Karibu sana.
Asante.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do at Cellulant, and how this partnership works for Cellulant as well.
So my name is Wangechi Catherine. I work for Cellulant. Cellulant has worn many hats in our 21 years of existence, but today we are a Pan-African payment business. So that means we allow businesses to pay and to get paid. I've been at Cellulant for about 3 years now, within which I've held multiple roles. Right now, I lead the operations team. How has this partnership been with Cellulant? I was just joking earlier today that when I'm coming up here, the guards wonder, do you work here, do you not work here? Because of the amount of time that we've spent in this innovation studio, actually coming up with this solution. Yeah. And today, how we see ourselves is that orchestrating layer between, the merchant or the SME who needs to get paid, and the bank who's actually either offering this credit or, bringing on board the corporate buyer, and we facilitate that movement of money.
Fantastic. So I'd like to come back to you, Olivia, and just talk a little bit about Visa's, relationship and obviously your reputation. I think we all see Visa in our cards, whether it's for banking or credit cards. And to many consumers, that's the imaging that they get of Visa. But what role are you playing in transforming B2B payments and enabling fintech innovation like Citi Optimized Pay?
Thank you, Moses. So Visa traditionally has done very well with consumer payments. In fact, we have a global extensive network. Yes. And you can use your card anywhere in the world, right? So we facilitate payments globally. But we are, as we expand and begin to focus on new areas, we are looking at how can we enable businesses. And businesses have very, very specific needs, like expense management, for example, or reconciliation and all that kind of stuff. So we are beginning to focus on B2B payments. Not really beginning. This has been a journey over time, and trying to meet or develop solutions that really suit businesses. So for example, today we have corporate credit cards. You may know about the consumer credit cards. Mm-hmm. I hope you have a credit card.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm definitely a Visa customer.
Right, you're a Visa customer. And so we have corporate credit cards, and we leverage such for travel you know, an entertainment for organizations. That's what my colleague here is issuing in the bank to his customers, right? So we also have spend clarity, you know, just providing insights and analytics and information to corporates on, you know, the expenses, basically expense management and creating efficiencies within the business processes that we have. Now, how we are transforming B2B is that we are actually leveraging these capabilities to, you know, solve for specific use cases. Today, we are solving for, you know, fleets, right? In travel, we are solving for, you know, in agriculture. We're using these capabilities, leveraging these capabilities to solve for agriculture use cases, and many others. So we are really rightly positioned, for example, in this market, to look at what do our businesses need and how can we solution for, you know, solutions that really meet their need, leveraging the capabilities that we have.
And I think this is so important as a nuance, because I think most, like I said, consumers see you as this brand on labels and payments and so forth. But in actual fact, you are really a global payments network. That's the underpinning proposition that you guys offer, isn't it?
Exactly. We are a global brand, which carries a lot of weight, of course.
Yeah.
And then much as consumers would see that, these consumers, of course, work in businesses, right?
Correct.
And they identify business needs that we could possibly solve for. So yes, we are a global, extensive network that can solve for movement of funds, for example, from Kenya to China. We have a lot of traders who are having difficulties, maybe, you know, buying stuff from China. We have solutions that can provide for that in a seamless, secure, and convenient manner.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So Evans, I'd like to come back to you and just want to ask you about the challenges you see in supply chain payments and B2B transactions. Was Citi looking to address with this solution?
So if you look at the B2B space, if you look at the B2B space, this is a market which, you know, traditionally was not served in the commercial cards, from the commercial cards angle, right? When you think of a card, you think of it more as a travel and entertainment tool, right? You use it to book hotels, you use it to book flights, to pay for that client dinner, right?
Online payments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's traditionally how our clients have been using commercial cards at Citi, right? And so we thought through travel and entertainment, it sort of limits the kind of growth that you can have on the commercial card space, right? And when you now think of cards as more of a payment tool, right, than a travel and entertainment tool, it now expands the use case that you have for cards, right? So what challenges now does that present, right? Number one is acceptability, right? Not many SMEs, I would say, would be having or would want to have the infrastructure because it may be expensive for them, they may be too small, or they don't see the value, right? However, we thought, okay, look, acceptability is a big challenge. That's something that we need to solve for. That's first. The second thing is that working capital remains a challenge in supply chains, right? Buyers want to pay far out as possible while suppliers want to be paid as early as possible. So what does this mean? It creates a working capital gap, right? And for you to address that gap, you actually need tools that will enable you to address that gap. So this is essentially what we were trying to solve for with this solution. Two key things. Number one is acceptability on the B2B space for the SMEs, as well as the working capital gap that would have otherwise not have been addressed as efficiently without a solution like this.
And how does that work on the side of the commercial, the corporate situation versus the SME? How would that work for them?
So if you think about it, our corporates as Citi we already issue them with corporate cards.
Correct.
They are enabled, to have this corporate cards, to use these corporate cards, on their day-to-day business, right? However, what this solution presents is the ability to expand that capability or expand the ability for them to pay beyond the traditional travel and entertainment,
Okay.
right? So now they are able to leverage commercial cards to actually pay directly to suppliers, and the suppliers do not need to have the card accepting infrastructure for them to actually accept a card payment, right? So that's how the two sort of marry together, in that on one side you have a client that has the commercial card, and on the other side you have a supplier that wants to be paid early.
Great. Wangechi, I'd like to come back to you. From Cellulant's perspective, what are the biggest inefficiencies you see in suppliers and merchants when it comes to payments and also collections?
So I would start with where my colleague Evans has left it off on infrastructure. So over the last 7 years or so, we've built a very robust infrastructure that allows you to collect from multiple payment methods, in this case, a card, but also get paid across multiple payment methods. So what do we have today is, as a supplier, I can choose to get paid via mobile money. So if the limits allow, I can come onto the platform and say, hey, pay me my 500,000 and send to my M-Pesa number. We validate that that's your M-Pesa number, we send it to you. You could also say, depending on the amounts that we're discussing, get me paid to a bank account.
Okay.
And in future, we're actually hoping that for those suppliers who start to see the value of cards, we should actually be able to disburse to cards. So we are solving for that fragmentation and saying you don't need to be banked today to get your money as you would need to be in traditional supply chain financing.
Wow. So you can actually essentially accept money in different formats
Correct.
or different mediums and still give you the flexibility to trade and do all these things that you need to do.
Correct.
Fantastic. And of course, I think Cellulant has had this reputation over the years of being one of the biggest, I say, Pan-African fintechs, one of the first. Incidentally, I was kind of in the room when it happened. But what does that take Cellulant in terms of the future? What does it mean for the business when you start sort of deploying these sort of propositions?
I mean, it's one, I dare say that seeing Citi Optimized Pay launch is one of my proudest moments at Cellulant.
Wow.
We fought, we made peace, we agreed, and we're still on that journey.
We didn't fight that much.
No, just a little.
We are not fighting.
But it's the healthy
We
fighting.
agree to disagree.
We agree to disagree.
It's the healthy kind of fighting, because I think if we all had the same ideologies, we wouldn't need to co-create, right?
Correct.
So with different ideologies comes, different expectations.
Correct.
But I have to say, it's not only my proudest moments, but I've also made friends who, I know we can build so much more. But coming back to Cellulant, we pride ourselves in being a Pan-African business. And this is one addition to our portfolio, that every customer we speak to is asking, when can you bring this to me? Our leadership team was recently in West Africa, a couple of them in the Southern African markets. And all of them are asking, what do I need to do to get this up and running? Our other partners in Kenya are asking, why Citi? Why are you not working with me?
Wow.
So it's a pretty exciting frontier for Cellulant as a whole, and we do think that it will expand our scope beyond, the countries that we serve today.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was so surprised when I saw the proposition of Citibank, Cellulant, Visa. I was like really trying to make sense of it, which is why partly we're here today, to really unpack it in the best way possible. I'd like to come back to you, Olivia, and again, just think about the Visa's capabilities. What makes them unique in terms of leveraging to make Citi Optimized Pay secure, seamless, and also scalable?
Thank you. I'd like to talk about generally Visa capabilities that are transforming B2B today.
Yes.
So we have, a capability called B2B Connect. And this is a capability that enables businesses to, do large transfers, cross-border large transfers. And it's largely based on blockchain technology. And so, it brings about a lot of transparency, efficiencies, and even cost.
Very secure.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff, right? We also have virtual cards, and this solution is really based on a commercial credit virtual card that you can issue to organizations, and they make payments based on that. Yeah, imagine that you can create a credential and attach it to an invoice to make a payment, right? So we have that. We have Visa Direct that enables businesses like the SMEs that are doing cross-border trade to, transfer money to, different bank accounts cross jurisdiction, right? So those are capabilities that we have that are really transforming the B2B ecosystem, especially with our partners, the banks and the fintechs that we work with. But the capabilities that we used to power up this solution, and Evans has already mentioned, we have the corporate credit card. So corporate credit card, Evans ties it to your credit line in the bank, right?
Yeah.
And enables you to, or employees, your organization or your employees to, expand using those credentials, right? So it's for expenditure management mostly. A lot of organizations are using it for, travel and entertainment, T&E. But what we are saying, and Evans has mentioned that, is we can extend the usage of corporate credit cards, and this is an example of how you can actually use corporate credit cards in market. So the second capability also is CyberSource. CyberSource is a well-known global payment platform, a Visa platform, and this is a checkout platform that Cellulant is using. So Cellulant has deployed the CyberSource platform to enable for them to charge the card, to charge the corporate credit card. Are you seeing how this is coming together?
So like right? Integrated, yeah?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So those are the solutions that we are using. And I must say that our solutions are, API based, so you can access over API, and that's what has been developed by Cellulant. They are secure. As a matter of fact, with CyberSource, we have what we call Decision Manager. Right? You can stop transactions in flight, and so providing some level of security on the transactions on the platform, right? So these are the main capabilities that we are offering. They're robust, they're scalable.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And now what are you thinking in terms of sort of scaling this model beyond Kenya on a Pan-African basis, again through this partnership, and any other propositions that you think will come to market? How are you planning to do that as Visa?
Thank you. So as Visa, we are present in, almost every other country in the world, right? And in Africa, we've covered, all sub-Saharan Africa, all Africa. And we chose Cellulant because of the Pan-African nature of Cellulant, right? So I wouldn't have to go into another market and get another partner and begin to work with them to build the solution. We have Cellulant, who is present in how many markets? 19?
About 22, yeah.
Yes, in sub-Saharan Africa. And so then that means that we can export this solution to any other market where, Cellulant is present. We started with Citi because Citi is the expert in supply chain finance. I must say that.
Really?
I have learned a lot.
Yeah.
They command a lot of market, respect when it comes to, supply chain finance. So you can see we are hanging out with the best. Yes. And so how to scale? Cellulant will take us to those. Of course, we'll go to those markets. In those markets, we are also present. And we have clients in those markets that are really looking forward to. Beyond Citi, and Citi, of course, has allowed us to pilot with them. They are our anchor partner. We are piloting this with them for the next 6 months in Kenya. But we are already talking to, clients in other markets.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And was there any underlying reason why it came to Kenya first? Is there any particular reason why you opted to do it here first?
Wow, the innovation studio. Let's start there. Okay, so we have the space and we are able to interact with, our partners. That was the very essence of this space, that we co-create solutions with our clients and partners. But another reason about Kenya and why Kenya first is that I know that you acknowledge that, we are a hotbed of
Innovation,
isn't it? And we have got a lot of fintechs here, and there's just so much that we can solve for. The ecosystem is vibrant and ready. The ecosystem is ready. The clients are ready to try out new things, and so that's the reason why we came to Kenya.
Fantastic.
First.
Thanks for that.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that we're actually in the space, that actually made this possible.
Where it all started.
Incredible.
Yeah. By the way, this is the only space we have in Africa, this kind of space.
Fantastic.
The leadership made a decision and chose, Nairobi as the innovation center that would represent or serve the rest of sub-Saharan Africa.
Fantastic. Evans, I'd like to come back to you, and I don't know whether you've already answered these questions, but maybe I'll just say them in this way. If you walk us through how Citi Optimized Pay works, What are the key features that are there?
Okay, so as I mentioned, Citi Optimized Pay is a B2B payment tool, right? So Citi is an issuer of the Visa commercial cards. We have purchase cards that we issue. The Visa virtual purchase cards that we issue to our clients, right? Now, when we have a client that wants, to onboard onto this solution, we'll thereafter issue them a corporate card, right? And this corporate card will then be lodged on a platform that Cellulant has provided for us, right? So that is sort of how the tripartite partnership sort of comes together. So on this platform, when the card is lodged, from a day-to-day basis, the buyers, in this case our clients, would be able to upload invoices for their subsequent suppliers, right? Remember, these suppliers have already delivered goods to the buyer, and the buyer have accepted the goods and have already accepted and approved the invoices, right? So it means that there's an outstanding payable to the supplier, right? So what happens is that when the invoices are uploaded on the platform, it's basically invoice details uploaded on the platform. They're all based off approved invoices, right? And the subsequent supplier is then notified that, look, hey, your invoices have been uploaded on this platform, right? So the supplier then has two options. They can either choose to cash out, meaning, receive their cash early, or they can likewise choose to wait for the credit period to lapse such that the corporate can pay them directly. Now, suppliers have conflicting obligations, right? They need to pay employees, they need to pay for their own suppliers. So it becomes, a working capital conversation, right? Should I cash out now to receive money early so that I can, so that I can meet my other operating expenses? In which case, if they do, on the platform, the card that had been lodged on the platform will then be charged, and a subsequent payout will be made in their preferred method, whether it's to their bank account or to their mobile wallet, right? And this happens on a day-to-day basis, right? And then, on day 30, because, the credit card period is normally 30 days, right? Similar to your normal credit card that I'm sure, Moses, you may have.
Yeah.
So on day 30, we issue a statement to the corporate based off all the transactions that have been done on the platform, right? Because, the credit card is obviously linked to our platform, Citi Manager, which is the card management system. And the statement is then issued from that platform, right? So when the buyer receives it, they'll review all the transactions, confirm if they're okay, do the reconciliation, and then do a subsequent payback to the corporate card. So that is how it sort of loops in together from, the beginning to end.
That's wonderful. So what you're basically doing, I'm running an SME, and that's my day job, and I can assure you the cash flow issue is a real thing. But the fact that it addresses that very specific issue, I think is really great. And then also for, in this instance, the customer, your corporate client, you are creating this additional use case for something that was used just for travel and entertainment, right?
Yeah, and actually, the essence of it is that we're making it as efficient as possible, right? We do not want to have additional, manual touch points. We want to digitize the whole process so that it's very easy and seamless for these buyers and suppliers to actually interact and, have these advances pass through to the suppliers through this platform. So the idea is to make it digitized and make it as seamless as possible.
And I know historically this process would require you to start filling out forms, sending this out, waiting for approvals.
Yes.
By the time you do it, it's actually so much effort, right?
Yeah, so if you actually go to your normal traditional process in the bank, it requires a lot of paperwork, a lot of KYC, a lot of documentation, and this normally takes a lot of time. Yeah. So by the time, the cash is actually being made available by the bank, it's already, the credit period has already lapsed, and they're able to, get paid directly by the buyer. So we want to make it as fast as possible and as seamless as possible, as I mentioned.
So let's come back to you, Wangechi. Cellulant's TING platform, but I love that name, TING.
Sound of a coin dropping.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it's meant to be?
It is.
Oh, now I know. Yeah. I never knew that. But I even see it in other applications, like I use Airtel. When I'm topping up my Airtel line, I use the TING to pay for that.
Oh, that's great.
So I've seen the TING logo there. But yeah, it's a key part of the solution. Clearly, it makes it work. Yeah. So how is TING powering the supplier payments and ensuring flexibility in how funds are received?
So one of the things, and I'll build on to what Evans has just said, today SMEs have to go to the bank. It's a very tedious, long process. You have to fill in a lot of paperwork. The bank has to run some KYC on you. So one of the first things we are doing is we are going to the SME. Why? Because KYC has already been done by the bank.
Okay.
By the time this large corporate buyer onboards you as a supplier, they've already done their KYC on you. Right? So we don't need to come in and start doing fresh KYC except verification of details. If you tell me to pay to Moses, I need to verify that this is Moses' phone number. And today we already have technologies that allow us to do that.
Okay.
So first is we are taking this solution to the SMEs. You receive a notification and you're told your invoice has been uploaded onto this platform and it's ready for discounting.
Okay.
You just come onto the platform, you see the details, you see the rates. So we are very transparent. And once you accept the terms and conditions, then we disperse the funds to you. Today, we are looking at near real-time disbursement, which is anywhere between 1 to 2 days. In the future, we actually want real-time disbursement, hoping Evans and team avail the funds. But that's really what we're solving for. So speed, complexity, transparency.
So basically within 2 days, money in the bank, so to speak.
Yes, and I would dare say within 1 to 2 days for now. In the next couple of months, it should be real time, as long as the funds fall within acceptable. So if it's mobile money, you should be able to receive your money as quickly as possible. If it's RTGS or amounts of 1 million and above, then they would have to follow the usual cycle. If it's beyond 3 p.m., then you have to get your money the next day.
So I'm now putting on my entrepreneur hat.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this question. I like what I'm hearing.
Okay.
I think I could use this.
All right.
I have corporate clients. So would this mean that I can speak to Citibank about how we can benefit from this proposition, knowing that we can actually use it in our cash flow? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
With an SME push?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the client is the one that initiates the process.
Correct.
Right? So if you do fall within our client's ecosystem,
all right,
then this is something that we can be able to actually provide. Because you see, if there is no need for this in the market, then even our corporates will not feel that they need to do this, right? But if there is a strong supplier push, then obviously it creates a need in the market. And so it's, I would call it like a reverse origination, right?
Yes.
Whereby you're going through the supplier to get to the buyer, right? However, if it's an existing program that we are running and you fall within the suppliers of the corporate client, then this is something that we'll be able to discuss with our clients about.
And I mean, it really works for both sides, because even the customer in your case, the cash flow issue, they can still get the payment made without having to use their money. SME gets their money quickly, they're able to operate. So it's like a win-win across the board. That's what I'm picking up here, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Actually, I would say one of the things that we are pegging on is if you know this platform exists as an SME, you can imagine if 10, 20, 30 of you go and tell a specific corporate buyer, there's this solution that exists, why are you not using it? Why can I not? Why are my invoices to you not here? It also opens up sort of an exponential growth opportunity where I want to be a part of that. So today it's Citi, tomorrow it could be other banks. But I would say that it actually opens up those doors to have conversations both ways.
I'd wager, and I'm speaking from experience here, because we know the painful realities of cash flow and the fact that you can say, look, I have 10 million in unpaid invoices, but right now I can't do payroll. That's the reality of an SME. And I'm sorry to say this, but this is possibly a reason why some SMEs have gone out of business. Meaning that maybe there's a payment cycle of 90 days, 60 days, but this guy or this company can't survive for 30 days. So if this is a proposition that can be sort of scaled out to many more companies, and obviously I think there's an element of de-risking in the sense that the client or the customer is not using their funds immediately to make those payouts, meaning they don't feel the pressure to use their own cash, then it kind of really helps everyone in the ecosystem.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the supplier is using or leveraging the creditworthiness of the big client of the bank.
Yes.
And most of the time they don't have that capacity as individual suppliers,
exactly.
Right? But now they have an opportunity to draw from the creditworthiness of, the big buyer, and leverage that to enable cash flows within the ecosystem.
I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen here.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be very popular very quickly.
Oh, great.
And I'm speaking as an entrepreneur because you're almost thinking like this solves a lot of my problems. You know, I have invoices, I've delivered work, but guess what? I'm in the hole because the payments are not going to come for 30, 60 days. What do I do?
Yeah.
It's a common problem.
Yeah, and remember, one of the key problems we were solving was the working capital gap, right? Remember, at the end of the day, suppliers want or would prefer to receive money, you know, once they deliver the good or service.
Correct.
Right? And the buyers, because they are also managing their working capital, they want to pay out as far out as possible, right? So that working capital gap is what this really comes to solve, right? And what you would find is that suppliers would be happy to take it because they're accessing their cash early, and buyers would be willing to take it because by nature of using credit, they're able to pay out later.
Fantastic. Olivia, I'd like to come back to you again. And, you know, why is a solution like Citi Optimized Pay critical now in Kenya and East Africa? Maybe we already touched on it, but I'd like to hear it in your own words.
Yeah.
Why now? Why here?
Yeah, I think my colleagues have already said the need. There is a gap, a working capital gap, especially in the SME segment, right? When we held focus groups here, you know, by the way, as we build solutions, one of the things we do is discover, you know, who the customers are.
Yeah?
Yes. So when we discover the customer, what we were hearing from the suppliers was really the working capital and the pain points that they have in even the paperwork with the banks and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we curated this solution specifically for this segment. And for Citi, who are not able to get to this segment, you know, Citi is not a retail banking market, and they wanted to tap into this specific segment. And so this has presented them with an opportunity to get to this segment. According to IFC, a study they did on supply chain finance in Kenya, I think in 2022, they are saying that less than 10% of SMEs actually are financed. The rest, like there's such a huge gap. And for us, what we see is opportunity, right? We see opportunity in, you know, providing this working capital and enabling efficiencies within the value chain, be it manufacturing or marketplaces or whatever business you're doing. We are creating those efficiencies and making sure that nothing stops. But, you know, we all continue to deliver the desirable outcome. But I must say that this also enables SMEs to digitize. You know, we are having solutions now that would enable SMEs to digitize. So once they begin to interact with this supply chain finance platform, Citi Optimized Pay, they're able to digitize some of their, you know, solutions. Where we are seated here, Moses, is represents a small merchant. I can see the
little duka,
right?
The shop,
yeah. And usually during the demo, we talk about the fact that these small merchants have, you know, certain specific issues that we need to solve for, this being one of them. So really excited that we've been able to solve this. And as I said before, it's, you know, cutting across industries from manufacturing to insurance to, you know, retailers and all that kind of stuff. We are looking to serve the entire segment of MSMEs.
I think there's something really important you've said, which is that the solution originated from the pain points of the customer through your design thinking workshops. And I think that's really powerful because quite often, you know, you find organizations in financial services are creating a product looking for a need, you know, as opposed to the other way around. So basically you found there's a need, and this really sort of emphasizes, or I think clarifies the need for this partnership to create something that actually solves the customer problem from their perspective, from their pain point. And I think that's wonderful because I think that's the illustration that, you know, you can really create something that's market relevant when you hear the voice of the customer.
Exactly. Just listening to the customer and making sure I have done mistakes, I've made mistakes before building products that are not relevant in market. But I'm really glad that we have this way of working where we first listen to the customer, we discover, sit down with the team together to design and then develop and deploy the solution, right? So those are just our working principles. Like we have to listen to the customer first. Otherwise, you'll be building solutions that are not relevant for the market.
Coming back to you, Evans, again, I have to come back. I'm so impressed that Citi is doing this because, for me, Citi has always been like probably the most premium banking brand I've ever seen in Kenya. And, it's one of those names when somebody says Citi, you kind of stand up a little bit straighter. It's one of those names. But, you're here, you're doing things that are showing financial inclusion, you're showing digital finance, you're doing these partnerships. How does this play into Citi's longer term plan for Kenya and the rest of Africa?
Yeah, earlier when we started, I think I mentioned that, our corporates do not operate alone, right? And they operate in an ecosystem where they deal with suppliers from the top tier who would have probably the same credit rating as them. And
peers, so to speak.
Exactly, all the way to the lower tier suppliers who may not even have access to credit anywhere, even if they were to look, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is that on the long tail side, these suppliers are really locked out, right? And so when we were coming up with this solution, the key, problem we wanted to solve was how can we look at this specific tier and come up with a solution for that, right? And this goes to, to our idea of how deep can we go into our clients' value chains, right? Because remember, if you service a client only, at
the
top
most
level,
obvious stuff,
obviously, payments, everyone can do payments. Payments is now a commodity, right? Collections, everyone can do collections. It's now a commodity, right? But other value-added solutions that can really go deeper into our clients' supply chains and value chains would enable that real value to be added to our clients, right? So that is essentially how we are looking at our clients, right? Not looking at only the surface level products that we can offer, but also the real value addition that we can offer them in terms of the lower tier suppliers. And if you're actually thinking about these lower tier suppliers, I think Olivia mentioned about the research that we did, and the numbers that we were looking at. According to the IFC report, actually the supply chain finance gap was about $25 billion, and that's around at that time 25% of our GDP, right?
Wow.
So if you're looking at that gap, it means that in our market there is a real need to solve for this, right? And if it's a need in Kenya, it's also a need in other markets.
It's endemic to other markets,
yes, right?
Yeah.
In other markets, there are still suppliers and buyers who interact, right? And it's a need. So when you're looking at how this will resolve this gap, beyond Kenya, this is clearly right up our alley in, how we are trying to think of our clients and the ecosystem that they work in, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wangechi, obviously it's early days. It's been a month and a half maybe at most?
Since the launch.
Yes, about a month and a half, I imagine. And I'm just wondering, are you getting any early signs, any early signals or feedback from the stakeholders, the merchants, the suppliers as to how this is working for them?
Yes, a lot. And a lot of it not very new feedback, because as both Evans and Olivia mentioned, many times we were in this room with not just Citi, Visa, and Cellulant, but with a possible, allow me to call them anchor buyers, who would then take this solution and allow the SMEs who supply them to take it. So I would say right now we just need to dot a few I's and cross a few T's, but it is a solution that is, everybody we speak to is like, okay, how can I have this today? And how can I have this without it, increasing overheads on my side? So what we are doing now is sort of figuring out how, again, we are a technology, at the back of everything we do is technology.
Correct.
So how do I integrate to these specific buyer systems that nobody has to intervene? And again, once you introduce manual processes, you introduce risk, you introduce aspects of overheads. So we want it to be a fully end-to-end automated process. But the feedback we've received from the market is, I don't want to say overwhelming because that's what we want and we can handle it, but it's quite exciting to see.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And are there any specific sectors or use cases that you're seeing that are sort of gravitating towards this solution, almost immediately lapping it up, as it were?
I would say when we started this journey, we did identify a couple of sectors, of course, outside of travel. So there's manufacturing is a big one, FMCG is a big one. But the more we speak to buyers, the more we realize anybody in logistics, anybody in insurance, basically anybody who has somebody giving them service, to the extent that even at Cellulant, we are looking at ways of how we can be one of the first corporate buyers, because we also have suppliers. So we did start with a set of about 7 sectors that we had identified, but the more we speak into this, the more we realize it can actually serve across all sectors that you can think of.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
So the potential is that it could be limitless.
Yes.
Fantastic. So as we're coming to the end of our conversation, maybe coming back to you, Olivia, I would like to get a sense of the way forward. From a visa perspective, where can this go? What can it become, from your point of view?
I like what Wangechi has said in terms of, we had thought about just a few of these sectors, but now we are getting so surprised by the use cases, because you get into a room and you listen to the pain point and you're like, but I've got this thing, yeah? Evans and I, just bumped onto a use case of paying farmers. We never thought that we would be using this. Actually, we thought that we had this, tier of suppliers who provide their services and produce maybe to the manufacturing sector.
Correct.
But we never thought that we would be impacting these small farmers,
Oh.
And so this is quite exciting. We are mapping this out and very open to, explore the various use cases that will come about, because this is a capability that can be leveraged to power up so many other use cases that we have and solve for pain points that we have with, MSMEs in the market.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you. So it's actually going down to even a lower tier in terms of the businesses that could benefit.
We were equally surprised, but excited, yeah?
Wow.
And are looking at this. So there's so much to solve for, even just in Kenya. So much to solve for in Kenya. But of course, we are looking to expand in other markets. We've got colleagues who are in our sales organization. We're already talking to some of our clients in, West Africa, in Southern Africa, and we are getting quite good feedback on, them looking forward to deployment in these markets. The good thing about this is that, again, Cellulant is Pan-African in nature, so it would be very easy for us to deploy similar solutions, in other markets. Of course, we'll still observe the regulatory requirements in those various markets. Right.
And then, of course, you have the robust support of a bank like Citi, which, you see the name, you just know solid.
Exactly. But yes, we continue to innovate. This is not the end of it. We are looking at, other solutions. But what's really important for me is to provide relevant solutions for the market. One of the segments that has been quite difficult perhaps to crack for now, for Visa, especially in our market, is the mass market. Yeah, how can I create everyday use cases, right, for our customers in our markets? Yeah, I don't know if you carried your card today. Yeah,
it's somewhere in my pocket.
It's
which one? The credit card or the regular card? Which one?
Yes, but you see, our customers are forgetting their cards at home, right? And so we are also enhancing that. Today we are tokenizing cards, and you can have this card on your phone, right? We have a couple of banks that have already deployed this, although it looks like they're deploying it for the affluent, but we are saying this is a mass market product. I mean, if you go to Europe today, everyone has Apple Pay and they're tapping away, right? Yeah, so we want to bring in that culture. We want to be able to solve for beyond supply chain, solve for everyday use cases for our customers and create as little friction as possible when it comes to payment experiences.
Fantastic. Yeah. What about you? What are your thoughts in terms of going forward? What does this become? How does it fit into the bigger picture for Citi?
Yeah, I was actually listening to Olivia, and the more you interact with clients, the more they surprise you, right? And you know, when you're thinking about the use cases that you had in mind a couple of years ago and how it has evolved to, you know, this tool that can be used in various use cases, I think that presents an opportunity.
Correct.
Right? So for me, it's really expanding the use cases that we can solve through this solution, right? I remember, you know, when we were doing research for the co-creation for this solution, I walked into a hospital building, right? And you know, it was actually Upper Hill Medical Center, right?
Yes,
you know, you have many small clinics, many dentists, and they all accept insurance, right?
Correct.
But remember, with insurance, when you use your insurance card, they don't receive the money instant, right? These small clinics, right? They receive the money later, right? From the insurance companies. So the question is, they were asking me was, okay, how can I access this money faster? Because I know these claims have been approved. All I'm just waiting for is, you know, the cash to hit my account, right? But I have employees to pay, I have rent to pay, right? So, you know, thinking about just different use cases that you can have with this solution is key to the growth of this. And remember when, initially I said, commercial cars has really been thought of as a T&E, travel and entertainment tool. But now expanding it beyond travel and entertainment is our key ambition with this solution. And expanding the use cases will really add on to that ability to really expand beyond you know, the use cases that we had. Number two is also the what I can say the development of the solution, right? We came up with a solution which was the initial version of the solution, and probably Wangechi will touch on it later. But when you speak to clients, they are looking for additional capabilities that we can support, right? So, for example, whether it is integration, our clients, remember, some of them are very sophisticated, right? So they have interfaced directly with the bank. So whatever happens on their internal system really interfaces with our bank. So there's no additional manual work. So our clients also want the same thing with this solution, right? They don't have to log in to upload invoices. They don't have to log in to do approvals.
They want a seamless process.
They want a seamless process. Whatever happens on their internal system really interfaces with our Citi Optimized Pay solution. And then the last thing is definitely market expansion beyond Kenya, right? We remember this solution or this problem is not just a Kenya problem, right? It's a problem in Egypt. It's a problem in South Africa. It's a problem in the markets that we are in, right? So seeing how, building on the best practices that we have here, where can we expand this solution to, and where would we add more value in other markets? So that's really how we're thinking about it as a Citi.
Great. So Wangechi, I think I have two questions for you. The first is, again, where do you see this going? What does it become? Again, the way you have the partnership means that wherever Cellulant is present, presumably you can also offer. The second thing is, I think probably the most basic question I could ask is, if a party is interested in onboarding either as a supplier or a customer, how can they become part of this solution?
Okay. So with the first question, both Olivia and Evans did touch on it. So I'm just going to build on it from a Cellulant perspective. When we listen to the customers, or when we listen to the feedback they bring us from the customers, it becomes apparent that what we have is an MVP. And we pride ourselves in being innovators, market leaders on that. So we already have, I would say, a roadmap that probably takes us all the way to 2026 in terms of what do we need to do. And it's amazing to see how a lot of the things that we've done at Cellulant then start to come to life, and we can tie them together. Today, we are leveraging both our collections and payouts capabilities. When I listen to the farmer who needs to get paid, already I start thinking that requires USSD, because I'm not going to tell this farmer log on to a website.
From a use case perspective, they're going to use USSD.
Exactly. And when I think about even all the other markets, Kenya is quite ahead in terms of penetration of internet. But a lot of these markets, when I think of Zambia, when I think of Ghana, USSD is still king, right? So it makes us want to think of that. When I think of market expansion, it's interesting that Evans today will bring me a customer through Citi, but that customer will ask, oh, can you serve my counterpart in market X,
Oh.
where Citi is probably not an issuer. So market expansion actually will work both ways. It's where Citi is present, probably where, well, Visa is present in all the areas where we're present, and who are the other people that we can work with in areas
Correct.
where none of these guys are present. So we learn every day. The possibilities are immense. I'm sure one of the things that we will probably have to talk about between myself and Evans and Olivia is, do we need a dedicated team just thinking through this because of how much the industry is demanding, right? On the second question you asked, which is, if I'm a supplier and I'm interested, or if I'm a large corporate and I'm interested, where do I sign up? So today, the route to market is very bank-led and subsequently anchor merchant-led. Why? Because off the back of this solution, there's somebody who's taking up the credit risk. In this case, it is Citi. So as a large anchor customer, you would need to be banked by Citi.
Okay.
So the question would be, how can my suppliers access this? And you call your RM today and you ask them, why haven't you told me about this amazing solution that you have? As a supplier, it would be now to speak to the person who is buying goods from you and understand, are there some of these solutions that actually exist? Because what you find is they might not even know the solution exists, right? And then it's up to them now to take it up with the bank, or it's a very small ecosystem, or it's a very connected ecosystem. The customers they're bringing to us, we probably serve them in a different aspect. So some of these conversations will make their way to either of these parties. But today I have to say it's very bank-led and it's very anchor merchant-led.
Great, great. Olivia, thank you so much for having us, in your space, in your place where this was actually conceived, Citi Optimized Pay, and we're delighted to see how this is going to solve for a lot of SMEs and micro SMEs as well. And again, I love the fact that the additional use cases are just coming to life as you interact with the market. So, I'm really also looking to see where this goes, and maybe one of these days will also be a beneficiary of this in my business as well. Evans, again, fantastic. I feel like Citibank is now coming to the market. It's coming to our level, from the high levels of corporate to the lower levels of SMEs that want to become corporates. And I think when you bring cash flow to an SME, being a person who runs one myself, this could actually save businesses. I'm telling you, this is a thing that could actually be a lifeline to businesses that have invoices, that have confirmation of payments, but they're sitting there for 60 days and they don't have a runway that long. They need that money in 30 days, and it solves a problem. And I think back to you, Wangechi, Cellulant is a company that I've known since inception. I always like to tell people I was in the room when there was that napkin moment, when one of your founders was drawing the way this business would work. And I'm so delighted to see how far it's come. But more importantly, I think the fact that you've always had that, aptitude and appetite to solving problems where financial payments and services are concerned continues to grow and become even more impactful on a Pan-African basis. So thank you guys so much for joining us in this conversation. And I'm wanting to see where Citi Optimized Pay goes from here in Kenya and also beyond.
Thank you for having us.
Nice having you here.
Yeah. Great. So there you've heard it, Citi Optimized Pay, a partnership between Cellulant, Citi, and also Visa, using all their different capabilities and their global networks and local capabilities to deliver a working capital and supply chain solution that is not just helping the SME to ensure that they have working capital, but also ensuring that the suppliers and those who work with them can also be able to then let them have their money earlier in order to keep their businesses functioning. Really a win-win on both sides of the scale. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.